Alright, what's going on, guys? Boy TG, welcome back to another video. So in this video, we are going to give out our second round predictions for the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. So obviously the Leafs and Panthers had their game one yesterday, with the Leafs winning by a final score of 5-4, and they lead their best of series 1-0 against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Now, you guys may have noticed I have not done, a lot of content on the TG Hockey channel. That's because doing a Hockey Talk with TG podcast, which comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure that you are following the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. So you can stay up to date on the latest episodes of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. But without further ado, we are going to give out our second round predictions of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. And we'll start things out in the West with the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars. So number 2 seed Dallas Stars against the reigning President's Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets. Their series kicks off on Wednesday, and I'll talk to you guys about that then. I did do a preview episode of the second round of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast for yesterday, so if you missed that episode, make sure to go check it out. But basically, we're talking about the same thing, but won't be going too much into depth about it as I did on Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. First time that the Jets and Stars will meet in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They have never faced each other in the Stanley Cup playoffs before. Not even the original Winnipeg Jets, which before the Jets moved to Arizona, came the Coyotes. They didn't even face the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Even when the Dallas Stars were, the North Stars, they didn't even face each other in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then when the Jets came back to Winnipeg, of course, they were the Atlanta Thrashers. They came back to Winnipeg. They didn't even face the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So this will be the first time that the Stars and Jets will face each other in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And both teams won against their Central Division opponents, the Avalanche and Blues, in 7 games. And that was an unbelievable Game 7s back-to-back weekends. Game 7s with Mikko Rantanen having a 4-point night against his former team. And then the Jets somehow, some way, coming back from 2 goals down, tying up with 2.2 seconds remaining in the third period. And then forcing overtime and then winning the game in double overtime. Those were unbelievable Game 7s between the Avalanche and Stars and the Blues and Jets from last weekend. Like I said, Game 1 will start on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. The Jets have won 3 of the 4 games against Dallas during the regular season. And this will be interesting to see. I can see this going to 7 games. Of course, taking a look at some of the Stars' key players, you got Mikko Rantanen, who had 12 points in first-round series against his former team. Then you have Rope Hintz and Wyatt Johnston, each contributing with 7 points. And for the Jets, Kyle Connor led the Jets with 12 points in the Jets' first-round series against the Blues. And Neil Ponick and Cole Perfetti each have 5 points. Mark Scheifele did have 6 points before missing the final 2 games due to injury. And we don't know if he could be back in time for the second round against the Dallas Stars. But good news for Stars fans, Jason Robinson and Emil Heiskanen are coming back into the lineup. So this could be a 7-game series for sure, with those 2 Stars coming back into the lineup for the Dallas Stars. But with that being said, I don't know. This could go either way, to be honest with you guys. This could go either way, but I did have the Jets advancing to the conference finals on my playoff bracket for the 2025 Stanley Cup playoff predictions video I did on TG Hockey channel about 2 weeks ago. I did have the Jets advance to the conference finals on my playoff bracket, so I'm taking the Jets against the Dallas Stars. And then we got the VGK, Vegas Golden Knights, taking on the Edmonton Oilers in round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Second time that these 2 teams will score off in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They previously met in the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs, which also was in the second round, with the VGK Vegas Golden Knights winning in 6 games against the Edmonton Oilers. Now, for those who did not watch my bold predictions video on the TG Hockey channel before the season started, I had the Oilers winning the Stanley Cup before this season has started. But if you did not see my playoff predictions video, I took the Vegas Golden Knights and I had them win the Stanley Cup on my playoff bracket. Now, I know some people were telling me that the Golden Knights would not make the Stanley Cup Finals, and then I kind of had doubts for myself, saying that the Oilers could eliminate the Golden Knights and then possibly go all the way to the conference finals, which in that case, Jets Oilers, Western Conference Finals, that'll be exciting to see if it does happen. But I don't know. I did say I had doubts of my bold predictions saying the Oilers would win the Stanley Cup because they had a lot of injury problems. But I don't know. This is tough. I did say the Golden Knights in 6 games for my Hockey Talk with TG podcast on Monday. And then I kind of had a little bit of doubt in myself about that. I don't know. This could go either way too. I'm going to say the Oilers get it done in 6 games. I don't know. Let me know you guys' thoughts on this. I did have the Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup on my playoff bracket. And then before the season started, I had the Oilers winning the Stanley Cup. So I'm in a little bit of a pickle here. You know what I mean? So I said the Jets would take this in 7 games against Dallas. I can see this going to 7 games, and this could be a series that could go either way. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas ends up winning the series. And then the Golden Knights and Oilers. I had the Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup on my playoff bracket. And then before the season started, I made a bold prediction videos saying the Oilers could win the Stanley Cup. So I don't know. Let me know you guys' thoughts on that Oilers and Golden Knights series. I'm going to say the Oilers take this in 6 games. And then now we go to the East. We got the Toronto Maple Leafs going up against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. So like I said, game 1 was yesterday. As you see right there, I know that's too small to read, but you should read under Toronto Maple Leafs. It said the Leafs lead this best of series 1-0. Second time that these two teams are squaring off in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Previously met in the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs, also being the second round with the Panthers winning in 5 games. Obviously, this series, I don't know. All I know is I have the Panthers winning over the Leafs, so I don't really need to explain too much myself about that series. And besides, for Anthony Stolarz is going down with an injury yesterday, obviously taking that vicious elbow to the head by Sam Bennett. And then we saw him vomiting on the Leafs bench. He might not return for the next games of the series, so it could be Joseph Wall, the remaining starter. And so with that being said, I especially have to go with the Panthers. So I'm taking the Panthers in 6 games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then we got the Washington Capitals squaring off against the Carolina Hurricanes. Obviously, the Capitals being the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference and being the Metro Division champions up against the Carolina Hurricanes. Game 1 of this series is today. Second time these two teams will be squaring off in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, we had the Carolina Hurricanes winning in 7 games in 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs. And these two teams, like Vegas and Edmonton, went 2-0 during their regular season series meets. And that being said, I had the Capitals moving on to the conference finals in my playoff predictions video on the TG Hockey channel. So you guys know I had to go to Washington right there. I said the Panthers would get it done in 6 games on Monday's episode of Hockey Talk with TG podcast. And I said the Capitals will get it done in 7 games. See that going to a 7-game series. Now we got Winnipeg and Edmonton squaring off in the conference finals. I don't know. I could be doubting myself. That probably was a stupid prediction to say, but I would love to see all Canadian Western Conference Finals, especially if the Leafs don't make the Eastern Conference Finals, which most likely they aren't. So Yeah, but obviously, imagine having the Jets, Oilers, and Leafs all in the conference finals. But I don't see the Leafs making it towards the conference finals. They're going to get eliminated by the Panthers once again. But Winnipeg and Edmonton going at it in the conference finals. That'll obviously be something. Um, let's see. I wouldn't mind seeing the Oilers and Panthers square off in the Stanley Cup Finals once again, and the Oilers get a redemption from last year. So wouldn't surprise me at that. I don't know. This is a tough one, guys. I'm gonna say the Oilers. Well, I can see the Oilers maybe pulling off a bit of an upset over the Winnipeg Jets, but let's take a look at their head-to-head series meetings. Does this show their regular season series meets? It does not. It does not show their regular season series meets. But could you imagine the Oilers pulling off an upset over the Winnipeg Jets and then making all the way to the Stanley Cup Final? I don't know how that would play out. Let's see. Do I still stick with the Oilers? I had them winning the Stanley Cup before the season started. Do I still stick with the Edmonton Oilers? I think I do. I could. Hopefully, they might pull off an upset over the Winnipeg Jets, make it all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. Like I talked about in the Hockey Talk with TG podcast before, that Calvin Picker is the unsung hero for the Edmonton Oilers. Then we got the Panthers taking on the Capitals in the Eastern Conference Finals. I will love to see the Panthers and Oilers square off once again for the second straight year in the Stanley Cup Final. Some people were predicting that Washington could go all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. So this is a tough one right here. Edmonton and Washington. Well, Florida and Washington, but it could be Edmonton and Washington in the Stanley Cup Final. We'll just have to see. Obviously, Alex Ovechkin broke the goal record this year. I don't know. I'm going to say Washington wins against Florida and they go all the way to Stanley Cup Final. So we got Edmonton and Washington going at it in the Stanley Cup Final. Obviously, Alex Ovechkin could possibly win his second Stanley Cup after breaking the goal record this year. What a moment that would be. But then on the other hand, I had the Oilers winning the Stanley Cup at the start of the season. I don't know. This is a tough one. I don't know how. I don't know, guys. I don't know what I'm gonna do here. Do I say Edmonton or do I say Washington? I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with the Caps for this one, and I'm just gonna type in a random number. I know I'm always wrong when it comes to this. So yeah. So second chance brackets, Capitals winning it all. It would be nice to see Ovi win the Stanley Cup. It would be nice to see Ovi win the Stanley Cup after, beating Wayne Gretzky's goal record. I had Edmonton to win the Stanley Cup at the start. I don't know. Anything can happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, but I know some people were saying Washington might be the favorite. I know I had the Oilers win the Stanley Cup at the start of the season. I don't know. I'm having second thoughts, guys. But let me know you guys' thoughts on this. I want to hear you guys' thoughts, especially with me having second thoughts about what I just did. I was trying to, think in reality what could happen. I know a lot of people were saying the Capitals could be one of the favorites to win the Stanley Cup. I had Edmonton win the Stanley Cup before the season started, but it would be nice to see Alex Ovechkin get his second Stanley Cup after beating Wayne Gretzky's goal record this year. But yeah, let me know you guys' thoughts on this, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the TG Hockey channel. I will be putting out a mock draft video sometime this week on the TG Hockey channel after what we just saw yesterday with the Islanders getting that first overall pick. And I'll talk more about that on Wednesday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So make sure that you are following the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So you want to make sure that you're staying up to date. The latest episodes of the Hockey Talk TG podcast, I'll talk more about the Islanders winning the draft lottery and other news for the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Like I said, let me know you guys' thoughts on this. You can chirp me if you want in the comments. I know I probably might get chirped at this for sure. I don't care. It's hockey. It's the Stanley Cup playoffs. Anything can happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So if you want to chirp me about this, go right ahead. If you want to say nice, positive thoughts about this, do you agree with my second chance predictions? Go right ahead. Say that in the comments. I don't care. I started having second thoughts myself. But let me know you guys' thoughts about this down in the bracket. And stay tuned for my mock draft video on the TG Hockey channel. And stay tuned for tomorrow's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And I'll see you guys next time.